Is there really $500 worth of difference between a 20-watt dual-band mini mobile and Yaesu's top-of-the-line FTM-500DR mobile rig? Let's take a look. Hi, and welcome to the Gadget Talk channel, where we do reviews and how-tos on a variety of electronic gadgets that catch my eye. If you find this video helpful, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the Gadget Talk channel. Thank you. Earlier this year, Yaesu released a new rig for UHF and VHF mobile operations. It's their top-of-the-line FTM-500DR. Coming in at about $650, it's by no means cheap and is likely out of reach price-wise for many hams. It seems to me the big question is it worth it? And what makes it worth $650? Now, the question, is it worth it, is much like a question you often see in online forums. That is, what's the best? Both questions omit an important point. That point is found in the words, "to me." A radio that's dirt cheap but doesn't do what you want it has little value, just like a really expensive radio that has a bunch of features you're not interested in, likewise, is not a good value to you. That being said, in this video, we'll start with an overview of the FTM-500 with the goal of describing some of the primary features along with my experiences so far. The goal is to help you answer those two important questions. As an overview, I'll give you some facts about the radio, show you some of the feature sets and their operation, and finish up with some closing comments. Be sure to use the chapter headings to quickly jump around if you're interested in some specific aspects of the radio. I also plan a couple of follow-on videos to this video for a deeper dive into some of the more complicated features. Speaking of complicated, the FTM-500 is a complicated piece of kit. One indicator of this complexity is that it has 5 separate operating manuals. Besides the operating manual that comes in the box, there are 4 additional manuals available online at yaesu.com. These include the Advanced Manual, the APRS Manual, the Group Monitor Manual, and the Wires X Manual. That's over 250 pages of instructions with really good illustrations and explanations. That's quite a difference from the dozen or so pages for one of my mini mobile rigs. The FTM-500 is designed from the ground up to be a mobile radio. Several of the reviews I've seen on this radio, as well as some extended interviews with the Yaesu National Sales Manager, point to these differences. They are not something I want to go into right now, but recognize that you'll see some differences if you're coming from one of the earlier Yaesu mobile rigs. These differences will likely make it seem as though the radio is more complicated than necessary. That's based on one of the basics of learning anything new. In other words, learning something new is easier than learning something you already do, but now have to do differently. Several of the complaints about the FTM-500 are that it works differently than the FTM-400. Those differences make getting familiar with the FTM-500 more of a challenge for those who are already proficient with the earlier Yaesu models. Now for me, that's not going to be a big problem, as the FTM-500 is my first Yaesu mobile rig. I won't have to worry about unlearning previous operations just to figure things out for the first time. Speaking of figuring things out for the first time, with several features that are new to me and 127 menu items to customize the radio's configuration, I'm planning on a learning curve where it will take some study and time to become familiar with the radio's basic operations and its features. Let's take a look at what comes in the box. Here's the box that it comes in. It's got some pretty good packaging. The box that came from Gigaparts, where I got this radio, had some crushing on it, but the packing inside prevented anything from happening to the radio. So that's all good. So let's take a look and see what we have inside. So here's our box. We've got the owner's manual, and it's pretty comprehensive in terms of all of the things that the radio can do. And these are also available online, so you can get all that stuff if you want to look through them before you actually order your radio. One of the things that other reviewers have commented on is this quick guide. It shows some of the main functions, and it looks pretty good. Haven't spent much time digging on it yet, but I will. Now we're getting into the radio and the other parts themselves. Here is the power cord. Seems to be quite a lengthy cord. Now for me, I'm going to be using this as a base station, and so on these ends I'm going to be mounting some power poles. So that'll be one of the first tasks for me as I work to get this up and running. Here's the microphone. Got a lot of the buttons and programmability here built into the microphone, which you'd expect in a mobile radio. Got some hardware packages here, some nuts and bolts and some screws and the mic clip. So that's all right here. And then here's the radio itself. So let me take that out here and move the box so we can look at this a little more closely. And so here's the radio, and with a couple of earlier models, they've got this mounting bracket, and it works as a slide-in tray, so there's not a lot of bolts or anything you need to put in here. You just press down the lever and then slide the tray off. That way you can mount the tray where you want it, and then the radio becomes kind of mobile in that you can just press the button and then move your radio. And they sell these separately, so you can put them in multiple vehicles or in your base station mount and then in your car if that's what you prefer to do. We've got a speaker on the top. We've got speakers under here. That's the AESS part of this radio. So the acoustic sound system, just a typical T connector here for power, fan, an SO239 UHF type connector here. And then on the back you've got an external speaker A, external speaker B, and a data port. So comprehensive connectability here on this radio. The slides for the mount here, owner's identification here in terms of serial numbers and so forth. And so it's a pretty nice feeling radio. Not terribly heavy, but certainly pretty good heft to it. Now the other thing on this radio that you can see is that this will tilt, so you can move the screen up or level depending on how you've got it mounted, and there's screws here in the side that allow you to do that. On this side you have room for a micro SD card, and then we can separate the front part of the display, or the big head they call this, by pressing on the release here and then taking off the head. So let me do that. So there's a short wire that connects to the body of the radio from the head. And then the other interesting thing is that here in the face of the radio part of this, there's a mic connector. So you can connect the mic connector here, or of course you can connect the mic here in the control head, so you've got some flexibility. And then the controls here in the head are, as you can see, with the DX switch, switching reverse display, the on-off, and the various buttons here on the front that we'll be talking about when we get this powered on. After mounting the radio in my shack and adding Anderson power poles to the power cable, Let's take a quick look at the initial setup. So here I've got my FTM-500 mounted in my ham shack rack, and let's turn it on and see what we have for the first time. So the first thing we're going to do is input our call sign. So let's put the power on this beast and see how it comes up. So we're going to start by pressing the function knob, which is right here. And we've moved it over, so we'll enter our call sign. With the call sign entered, we press the function key, and the power turns off. Restarts, and there's our screen. So let's go explore some of the other things here on the radio. So let's take a quick look at the radio with the power on. We'll look at some of the specific features separately, but this is just kind of the overall view. Across the top there are a number of buttons here that you can access. At this corner is the GM for group mode. The DX will access wires X. The SDX will increase sensitivity or decrease. It toggles back and forth. The button with the two arrows on it will switch the main down to the sub or the sub up to the main, depending on how you want to think about it. And then the display button will remove the sub VFO and display the waterfall chart. So here you can see we've got the chart instead of the VFO sub. And then the on-off switch here. Now, I want to refer to these as main and sub, one, because that's how they're labeled on the radio, but it also is important for you to understand how this works. In that, so the thing that controls the main is going to be this upper button and the large tuning knob, and the sub will control here. So it's going to move things, and so that's one of the differences with this radio with some of the earlier versions. Our main button, when we twist it, we'll change the volume. Let me get under here. You can see the volume changing here. And if you press it, volume changes to squelch, and you can change the squelch. On the lower, the same thing with the sub button. So it's set to volume now. You can see the volume going up. If you press it, it'll change to squelch, and you can make changes to the squelch for that sub band. The next thing we'll look at here is the main button, and this is going to control, and it's a big button, so it's easy to control your main band. So we can make changes. Here I am in memory mode, and so I'll switch between my memories. I've only got 2 stations programmed in right now. We'll program a couple of others in the course of the video. And so we've got our ability to control there, and then a press on that button allows you, as you see it start to flash there, make some changes there. Now, here we've got 4 buttons around the edge, and so let's look at this. This is the primary memory group button and primary write, and so a short press on this is going to go into the primary memory group, and you can see I've got 3 here. I've got the one that I had displayed, I've got another one, and then the second one I've duplicated, and so it shows 3. It's actually just 2 right now. A long press on this would allow me to write the information that was in the main into the primary memory group, and the group will hold 5 channels, and if you're adding the 6th, then the channel that had been there the longest would be overwritten. You see that repeater just got keyed here, and you can see that it shows full orange right there. Now the VM button will change, and so you can see I changed to VFO, it turned to VFO. Here I turned to memory, and it comes up as memory all. Now when I get a 70 centimeter channel programmed in here, then this number will move between VFO memory all, memory VHF and memory UHF. And so that allows me to scan a little bit more effectively without going through all of the channels if I'm only interested in 2 meter or if I'm only interested in 70 centimeter. Over here, I can go through my bands. A quick press will change the band. So there's my memory VHF, memory all, and again, I don't have a memory UHF in there right now. A long press here will move me to the VFO, and then a long press again there will move me to the configuration screen where I can choose the bands that I want to have on or off. And so to make changes, I'm going to use the function button, and I can turn on or off the VHF, turn on or off the UHF, and turn on or off that expanded VHF that's available. And since I didn't want that on, I've got it turned off. The other stuff I've got all turned on, and to get out of that, I'm going to press the back key. So the back key then is the last key here on the front. Now here we've got the function key, and a quick press on the function key will take you to the customized function list, and here you've got 8 of the 127 menus that you can put in here to make programming easier for doing the kinds of things that you do. And so I've got it set for scan, I've got the power, the type of squelch control, in this case CTCSS. I've got the automatic repeater system off. I've manually set the tone, and I've got APRS off here and so forth. To work my way through these, I'm just going to use the function key again, and when I've got the function key set, I press it and then I can make a change. Press it and then that change becomes activated. To get out of this, I just press back again, and then a long press on the function key takes me to the full menu, and so you can see I've got all kinds of stuff, and they've got subheadings that are described in the manual. So this is configuration stuff, a lot of them. There are memory related menu items here and transmitter related items here, and so you can work your way through all 127 of these memory items to customize the radio to what it is you want it to do. Again, pressing on the back button takes us back to the main display, and then pressing on the band allows us to rotate between those active bands. And in this case, I can go into memory mode by pressing here, and then now my repeater is active again. And then the last one we'll look at here is the subdial, and you can see I'm making changes to the VFO in the sub position. I can press the button, and then it changes to the other part of the numbers, so I can speed up my programming just a little bit. And so that's the subband right there, and then we've already talked about subband in terms of volume and squelch. Now let's look at accessing the menu functions and using what Yaesu calls the CFL, or Customize Function List. So as we just pointed out in the tour, a long press on this button, the function button, is going to take you to the main menu button. As we showed you before, the menus are divided up into various sections. So we've got transmitter menus, memory menus, configuration menus, and we work all the way through 127. Now, all of these work the same way. You highlight the AI item using the function button, press the function button to make the choices illuminate, and we can make the changes that we want there. Press again to select, and then back to leave the menu function all by itself. If I wanted to go to the timeout timer and I just press it real quick, and then I can make my changes. And you can see the numbers changing. I'm going to set that to 2. Now, if for some reason I made changes to timeout timer quite a lot, and I wanted it on the custom function list, the CFL, I could press and hold the function button here. Now you can see that the custom function list came up, and that first block started with the timeout timer. And so now if I wanted to do a timeout timer change, I could press it. I've written it by pressing it to the function, it stopped flashing. And so now if I wanted to make a change from the custom function list, I could just press it. And then now I can make those same changes down here. I'm going to go back. Same thing here with transmitter power. If I want to make a change to transmitter power, quick press, it lights up down there, and then I can make my changes. I got that changed, and I can go back, and then I can leave the custom function all alone. Now, if I want to go directly to the custom function list, I just do a quick press, and then now I've got that back, and I've got these same 8. And you can customize any of the 127 menus that you want to put here into the custom function list, depending upon what it is you like to do or what you find yourself doing most often. It's pretty easy to program in a repeater. In this example, we'll use the CFL to quickly add a local repeater, name it, and save it to a memory channel. To start with, we're going to just set it up to use as casually, just get ready to go. And then we're going to put it into memory as well. So those are the 2 steps we're going to go through right now. So first we need to move into VFO mode. And we need to select the repeater frequency. We're going to move to the larger numbers. And this is going to be a 70 centimeter repeater, so it's on 442. So we've got 442 set. So we'll spin again now, since we're in the right band, and we'll go up to 8500. So we've got 442, 8500. And so with this set, we see that we've got an FM, it'll automatically pick up, and then it's got a positive offset. And that's because I've got the automatic repeater shift on. So let's make a couple of changes to this so that we can get in there. So we'll press the function button real quick. And so we'll work through here. We've got the automatic repeater set, so that gave us that positive offset. The next thing I'm going to want to do is I want to get the tone squelch. So we've got squelch on, and then we want to do tone encode. And so tone encode is for the uplink code, and tone squelch is for the downlink code. This repeater only has an uplink code, and it is 100. So we'll spin over here. We've got 100. You can see that we can make changes here, but it's came up with 100. That's what we want. So we'll make that change. I don't want it to come up on high power because it's not that far away from me. So I'm going to make another change here. And I'm going to go to mid power. And so now on that frequency of 442, 8500, I've got a positive 5 offset, and I've got a uplink tone of 100, and I'm going to be using mid power. So now I can go back. And so now I've got my radio set. You can see that I've got TN100 up there. And if I try to access the repeater, you can see that it came up, and so I have the repeater all set. So it's really pretty easy when you put those repeater related commands into that custom function list. You can get your repeater set up very quickly. Now, if your repeater uses the non-standard offset, you can use the menu items to specify the offset for the particular repeater. But this radio will have the automatic repeater settings for the area in which you're buying the radio, you know, Asia, Europe, or the United States. And so now we want to save the repeater and do some editing. So let's do that. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to press and hold the VM and memory right. That's the second highlighted button right here. So we're going to press memory right and hold it. And it opens up at the lowest open channel, and that's where we want it to go. And so that's fine. I can make adjustments if I want to, but in this case I'm fine. So I'm going to press the function button, and I want to write it to that memory. And so now if I were to go back to my various memory modes and make changes. I've got that first one I had, the second one I had, and now I've got the third one that I had as well. But now I want to put a name in there, and so I want to be able to make some adjustments. So I've pressed the memory right button again. I'm going to move up to choice number 3. I'm going to press the function button, and then I'm going to make a selection for edit. So I'm going to press edit. And so now you can see I can make changes to all of the things that I had in there. So there's my 44285. I've got it on the auto set, so my transmit frequency isn't in there. It's on the scan, but I don't have a tag or a name. So I'm going to press tag, and I'm going to go to caps. And this particular repeater is Shaw Butte, so it's S. Caps again. Now I've been using a stylus, and you can use your fingertip. You can also move the letters around using the function key and pressing that. In this case, that's not what I want to do, so I'm going to press a long press on function. And so now I've got Shaw Butte as my tags, and I'm OK. And so now it says Shaw Butte, and if I go back one more time, go to memory, I've got Shaw Butte named there for that 70 centimeter repeater. So that is a quick overview of adding a repeater. Now, one of the drawbacks right now, as I record this, is that Yaesu does not have a customer programming software for this. And so you're going to have to program it using this method that I just described. On the other hand, RT Systems has a programming software that you can use the SD card to program. It's about $25 at the usual radio outlets. And so you need to be careful with that, though. The first step, as it describes in that software, is that you need to read from the radio, because the radio will tell the software what version of the radio it is. And failure to do that could damage the radio. And again, the Yaesu sales rep has made kind of a veiled threat that using other than Yaesu software might void the warranty. So be cautious with that. A lot of people are using it with great success. Just be mindful of the fact that the software needs to know what radio you have, and you could run into problems with Yaesu if you mess it up. Hopefully they'll have their customer programming software available fairly soon. Now that we have a couple of channels programmed, let's talk a bit about memories. One of the advanced features of this radio is that instead of programming channels into groups or banks, the radio will present channels by band. When in memory mode, you can scan or rotate through the frequencies that fall in that band. Yaesu calls this memory auto-grouping. If you have a bunch of memory channels, you can also use a related feature. It's called PMS, or Programmable Memory Scan. This feature allows you to set up to 50 upper and lower frequency pairs. This feature allows you to scan the memory channels in the frequency range. This is one of those features found in the Advanced Operations Manual. The last memory function we'll mention is called PMG, or Primary Memory Group. This function allows you to place up to 5 memory channels into the PMG and then easily access them by pressing the PMG button on the faceplate. The display turns orange and all the registered channels are shown in the lower display area. Active channels show an orange bar when a signal is received on those respective channels. You can select the channel by pressing the touchscreen or rotating the main knob. So I've got the Shaw Butte repeater in the display here, and I'm in our memory mode, and I want to add it now into my primary memory group. And so to do that, we want to register the channel into the primary memory group. So in this case, we're just going to press and hold the primary memory group. It says primary memory group right, and so it's registered that frequency into my primary memory group. And so if I go back to now my primary memory group, instead of 2, I have 3. And so I can change from channel to channel using my primary memory group, and these will light up orange if there's some activity happening there on the primary memory group. And so that's the use of the primary memory group. It's easy to do it. Pressing and holding the back button will deregister the channel. And so if you have one that you find that you don't use very often, press and hold, it'll drop it, open up a spot for you to add a new one to your primary memory group. There are clearly more functions I haven't touched on in this video overview. For example, I haven't mentioned the C4FM and Wires X digital functions other than in passing. I also didn't mention the FTM-500's built-in APRS functions and GPS features. We'll do some additional videos that emphasize those features later on. We started out by asking 2 questions. One was, is the FTM-500 worth it to me? And the other was, is the FTM-500 worth $650? The first question is very personal. How you plan to use a dual-band mobile rig is the determining factor. If you want a decent rig for your vehicle to listen in on local nets and occasionally chat with a couple of buddies in town, the answer is probably no, it's not worth it. On the other hand, if you want a full-featured mobile rig from a manufacturer with an excellent reputation, the answer will likely be yes. Being able to access C4FM digital modes, make use of APRS functions while mobile, and having a radio designed with a mobile operator in mind all add value for the ham who is into those things. The second question was, is it worth $650? That too has a strong personal component. The fact is that radios from Yaesu and ICOM that are engineered and built in Japan have a much better reputation for quality than sub-$200 radios from Chinese manufacturers and are priced accordingly. When compared to top-of-the-line HTs from both Yaesu and ICOM, this radio, as a mobile rig, is priced competitively. Radios with digital modes cost more than analog-only devices. While there are several nice DMR radios from a couple of Chinese vendors in the sub-$250 price range, if you're looking for C4FM or D-Star, however, you're limited to Yaesu or ICOM and Kenwood, respectively. Your budget and your personal feelings about spending more for top-of-the-line equipment are also important factors. For me, having a couple of higher-priced radios for the shack falls within my comfort zone. So yes, the FTM-500 is worth $650 to me. At the same time, I can tell you that I don't have several $500 HTs. A couple of sub-$100 analog HTs and an occasional entry-level digital HT work just fine, again, for me. As I get them completed, I'll link my follow-on FTM-500 feature videos over here. In the meantime, I hope you found this video helpful and you'll subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and 73.